go ahead and get started.
I see Jim. Well, this is the new.
The meeting of the HABD Board of Commissioners is now called to order. We'll start with a moment of silence. All right. Roll call. Vice Chairman Todd. Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Commissioner Clark. Here. Commissioner Lewis.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Adoption of the agenda. Before we move to the adoption of the agenda, I just want to make sure that commissioners and Mr. Lundy make sure that we're speaking into the microphone. The meeting is being recorded, so we have to make sure that we can record the minutes properly. So make sure we are speaking directly into the microphone so that we can record the minutes. Okay. All right, on the agenda, we have one item that needs to be omitted under real estate development. That's item 1. That item is going to be omitted from today's agenda. Real estate development, number 1. And with that omission, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we adopt the agenda as revised by the chairman.
A second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted. Okay, recognition of HABD Employee of the Month for March 2019, April 2019, and I think May 2019. I think we have 3, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Lundy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have 3 employees who are going to be recognized today as Employees of the Month. I have my Vice President of Human Resources, Calandra Jefferson Mitchell, to make the presentation. Ms. Mitchell?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So first I'm going to introduce March Employee of the Month, Jennifer Bachner. Jennifer is currently employed as Administrative Assistant at the Central Office under the Finance and Administration Department. Ms. Bachner has been working with the Housing Authority for over 4 years, 2 years as a temporary worker. Ms. Bachner always demonstrates outstanding work performance. She is the embodiment of teamwork and provides excellent customer services. Ms. Bachner utilizes a correspondence and deposit log to track all checks and payments requests that comes to the Finance Department. She leads the way in participating in any HABD event, games, and contests. She is a dependable, organized, and has great attention to detail, which are all good characteristics needed for her administrative role. We would like to introduce the March Employee of the Month, Mrs. Jennifer Bachner.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to HABD and the family that I've adopted. You are family, and I enjoy working with everyone, and thank you for this honor.
Next, I would like to introduce the April Employee of the Month. Kanji Drake is currently employed as the Vice President of Assisted Housing, formerly known as Section 8, at our McCord building under the Assisted Housing Department. She has been with the Housing Authority for over 6 years. She started with the agency as a housing specialist and moved into the interim lease housing manager position and on to the interim VP, and eventually was promoted to the VP of Assisted Housing due to her exceptional quality of work, output, and excellent leadership traits, such as enthusiasm, confidence, strong commitment to excellence. Ms. Drake is a very dependable and detail-oriented person that has taken the Section 8 department to new heights under her supervision and direction. The Housing Choice Voucher Department has attained and maintained the high performance designated for CMAP. Ms. Drake's many skills do not just end with her office work. She willingly volunteers for many HABD functions and events, such as the Scholarship Foundation, HABD Annual Tour Drive, and Annual Employee Team Building Event, Picnic, among other events. Ms. Drake loves people, works hard, and has a way of lifting the spirit of those around her. We would like to introduce the April Employee of the Month, Mrs. Kanji Drake.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks to my staff members, my colleagues, the board, Mr. Lundy for this honor. I've been an employee, as Ms. Mitchell, Jefferson Mitchell said, for almost 8 years, 2 as a temp and 6 as a permanent employee. This is my first time receiving Employee of the Month, and I'm definitely honored. As an executive manager, I always try to encourage my employees to strive for this achievement and never imagine that someone was looking at me for it. So thanks for the opportunity to do what I enjoy the most, which is helping people.
All right.
And so, Mr. Chairman, before
Yes.
we go to the next recipient, I just want to take a moment to thank the first recipients. Kanji does a super job. She knows her discipline, and one of the things that stands out when Kanji performs is her attention to detail and her ability to grasp information in a very quick fashion. As you know, Mr. Chairman, she comes to the board on a regular basis with updates on her assistant housing program, and so she does a super job. Jennifer is one of those employees who work in our financial services department. Of course, they make sure the numbers pan out and add up at the end of the month, and she does a super job, and she's a delightful person. She participates in all of our events, and she really throws her heart and soul into everything that she does. We recently had a fundraiser for the Scholarship Foundation, and as you know, Mr. Chairman, the theme was the Rolling 20s. And her outfit was just outstanding. She really got in the role, and she was doing one of those little 1920 dances. It was really hard to select the winner, but she's just a delightful person. When she mentioned in her comments that she feels that she's part of the family, and she really is. And so we love these two employees. I just wanted to make those comments before we moved on.
Very good.
All right, so next I would like to introduce the May Employee of the Month, Ms. Glenda Bailey. Ms. Glenda Bailey is currently employed as the courier under the Finance Procurement Department. She has been with the Housing Authority for over 38 years.
Wow.
Ms. Bailey provides outstanding customer service by going over and beyond her required job duties. She is punctual and essential to the inter-office working of the agency by facilitating and delivery of our inter-office and outgoing mail. She's always willing and ready to volunteer for any HABD event. Ms. Bailey has a willing attitude and always performs her assigned duties with a smile on her face. Ms. Bailey is recognized for her significant contribution to HABD mission and goals, and we would like to introduce the May Employee of the Month, Ms. Glenda Bailey.
All right.
What can I say? Well, first of all, thank God for everything. It's all is well. And I love everybody. Bottom of my heart. And I hope that I can keep on do good work. That I always want to say, do unto those you want them to do to you. It mean a whole lot. And we all family. We work together. We show that love, that respect, the honor, for one another, and just hope for the best for everybody. And really, I started here when I was 19. I'm not ashamed to say when I had first started, I had started on a program from 6 weeks, from that 6 week to 18 months, from 18 months, and I was blessed to get hired from. So I thank God for everything, and I hope to keep on working and be with my family. I love you all,
Love you too.
and I hope to keep on doing good work.
All right. Congratulations, Ms. Bailey. Well deserved, well deserved. I tell you, I've been knowing Ms. Bailey for a while now, and every time I see Ms. Bailey, every time I'm interacting with Ms. Bailey, she always has a smile on her face, and she loves her job, and she loves HABD, I tell you that. And I tell you, you are what embodies HABD. Your spirit embodies what HABD is all about. And so that award is so deserving for you. And I think you got 25 more years in you. I think you got 25 more years in you. All right.
May I say this?
Yeah. Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to say Miss Bailey not only is faithful to HBD, but my son taught her sons, and he says she was one of the best parents that ever came to the school for anything. Because some parents can be irate, and all that. But he said she was one of the best parents he has ever come and had an encounter with when he taught their children. So it spreads beyond HABD. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have to make some comments for Ms. Bailey. And it's easy to say how sweet she is. She always has a wonderful smile on her face every time I see her. She volunteers her time for events outside of the office relating to the Housing Authority. Every dinner I go to that the residents are sponsoring or events, she's there serving and assisting us. And so hats off to you for your dedication to the agency. Speaks well for both the agency and the employee, because it's a different world today than it was 40 years ago. And to be able to work for the same agency for 30-something years, that's remarkable. And it speaks well, highly for the agency, as well as the good work that the employee does. So thank you, Ms. Bailey, for your dedicated service to the Housing Authority Birmingham District.
All right. Is that all of our employees of the month? Yes. Okay. All right. All right. Approval of the minutes. And before we approve the minutes, I want to make this notation, and I briefly mentioned it to Mrs. Bibbs. One error that I did find was that on the committee meeting in March, to my recollection, I was not at the committee meeting in March. If I was at the committee meeting in March, I stand corrected if I was, but to my knowledge, I was not at the committee meeting in March, and the minutes stated that I was at the committee meeting. And so if I was, please apologize, but I don't remember being at the committee meeting in March. So that was the only error that I saw in the minutes. So with that correction, if I could entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting, March 22nd, 25th. Don't have my glasses on. 2019.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. The minutes have been approved. All right. President CEO report, Mr. Lundy.
Mr. Chairman, to the commissioners, to the residents here at Cooper Green who are here in the audience, to our staff and to the citizens of the city of Birmingham, it's my pleasure to report to you this afternoon 3 items. The first one is the summer meals program. On May the 18th, 2019, I received a phone call from Dr. Chris Stewart, who is the pastor of Divine Faith Missionary Baptist Church located in Marks Village, and that he had identified some funds for contributions to support our meals program at Marks Village. We were very excited. I was very excited to receive a call from Pastor Stewart. He is also one of the local ministers who is interested in working with the Housing Authority in forming an advisory council to provide my office and the Housing Authority feedback as it relates to our redevelopment initiatives as we move forward, and also interested in working directly with our residents and indirectly with our residents in the community centers. One of the things that we've talked about, and thanks to Dr. Todd, who's the vice chairman, who's not here today, for arranging opportunity for me to meet some of the local ministers. They have a very strong interest in what we do here at the Housing Authority Birmingham District. Many of their parishioners live in our public housing communities, our Section 8 communities, and they really would like to have a hands-on and so many resources that they could bring to bear to assist us. And so I was delighted to have an opportunity to meet with some of the local ministers. And we've not met for our first advisory council meeting as of yet. That won't occur until June. But before our first meeting, I received this call from Pastor Stewart, who's identified these funds. And so I was delighted to get a call from him. And what he said to me, that they have the funds to support a meals program of 1,500 children. And that's significant. Those are new dollars. And so some of the monies that we had identified perhaps for Marks Village can be used for some of our other communities. So I'm delighted to be able to report that to you this afternoon. The second item that I want to share with you this afternoon is the Transitional Housing Partnership with the Firehouse Ministries. As you may be aware, the Housing Authority is currently implementing its first phase of RAD, which is the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program at Tom Brown. And the first step in that redevelopment is the transfer of assistance of 22 apartments in Tom Brown, which will that assistance will be transferred to a property in Center Point called the Farrington Apartments. We've had some discussions about this initiative throughout the year and last year, as a matter of fact. So one of the things that we're required to do through the Department of Housing and Urban Development is to create what they call a serviceability plan. And so when these 22 units, when the assistants get transferred out of these 22 units of 200 plus units, those units no longer receive assistance through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And so we will no longer receive assistance through the low rent housing program. And so one of the things we have to do through this RAD initiative is create what we call a serviceability plan, which basically says to the department what we intend to do with these units. Now, the RAD program obviously is a relatively new program. So there's not a lot of examples of housing authorities, what they do whenever they take these units out of service. One of the things we can do, I guess the natural thing to do is, I see our attorney just walked in, you come on up. One of the things that we could do, we can board up the units and just mothball the units. And from our perspective, that's probably not the best use for those units if we can figure out a way to work with the community to keep those units in some sort of service capacity for the larger community. And so what we've done, we've been working with the Firehouse Ministries, who, as you probably know, has a presence here in Birmingham. And the current facility that they're in, they're looking for a new location. And they have a program that is we sort of look at it as a transitional housing program. So they've got a number of clients that come into their center for counseling, and primarily these families are homeless. Many of them are homeless and have other challenges as well. And so they provide counseling services and try to identify housing opportunities for the clients that they serve. And so the purpose of this initiative is to create an opportunity to use our 22 units to help assist families that are transitioning into permanent housing. And so they've identified 13 units of the 22. They want to use 12 of the units as housing for their clients, their 12 two-bedroom units. And so they would have 2 adults living in each unit, each of the 12 units, 24 adults. And they would like the 13th unit to be a 3-bedroom unit that they would use for counseling. They would have their counselors occupying that space, which would be in close proximity of the 12 units. The other service that they would be providing to assist in the overall counseling, they have their own public safety security guards that will be also utilized to just help to ensure that we can address all our public safety concerns in the community. So this is something that we want to move forward with, and this is on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, for this board's consideration. We think it's an excellent opportunity to collaborate with the larger community to provide housing in a non-traditional format. And these are units that probably have no use for otherwise to board them up. In terms of the financial commitment, what the Housing Authority will be providing is to turn the units over, do an initial unit turnaround to make sure they are acceptable for occupancy. The Firehouse Ministries will provide the ongoing upkeep as it relates to unit turnaround. If there's any major issues with respect to any major systems such as roofing, plumbing, or electrical, then the Housing Authority is proposing to address those issues with non-HUD dollars. And so we think that would be nominal. Probably we don't anticipate that that's going to be an issue until such time as we're ready to redevelop the entire site, which we will, at that point, would move to transition to a different format. That's the second thing I wanted to report. And so the third thing is, in fact, we didn't have a meeting last month, and we've got a lot of things going on in the House Authority Birmingham District. And so a number of things that I could report on today. This third item, I just felt like we just had to report on it. So the third item is we had a visit by the Secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, Dr. Ben Carson, who visited our Campus of Hope on April the 18th of this year. And HABD had the pleasure of hosting a roundtable on the topic of opportunity zones for the Secretary of HUD. And Dr. Carson also serves as the administration's lead person for overseeing the progress of the opportunity zones. Here in Birmingham, we have, I believe, 24 designated opportunity zones, which is probably the largest, I believe, number of opportunity zone designations in the state of Alabama. So we have a huge, exciting opportunity to redevelop many of the neighborhoods here in Birmingham. So the visit was a two-parter. The first part was for the roundtable discussion about the Opportunity Zone, and then the second phase of the visit was to actually visit the Campus of Hope, which is structured after the Secretary's Envision Center initiative, which he put into place when he first took office. And I sort of see this as the Secretary bestowing a great honor to this agency by coming to this agency, our agency, and having both of those events at our Campus of Hope in Marks Village. A little bit more on the Campus of Hope visit. But back to the roundtable, we had a number of local and federal people around the table for the roundtable, and I'll just list those for the record. Obviously, we had Dr. Ben Carson, Secretary, Department of Housing and Urban Development, Dr. Denise Cleveland-Leggett, HUD Regional Administrator of Region 4. We had several HUD staff. We also had Pat Hoban Moore, who is the Interim Executive Director of the YWCA and former HUD executive. We had Dr. Lisa Herring, who's the Superintendent of Birmingham City Schools. We had Josh Carpenter, Director of Economic Development of the City of Birmingham, Chairman Cardell Davis, the Housing Authority of Birmingham District. We also had several local bankers, which include Leroy Abrams from Regions Bank, Bryant Heesop of Cadence Bank, Kendra Key, Hope Credit Union. We also had Dr. Mona Farad, who is the Director and Professor of UAB Minority Health and Disparity Research Center. We also had Dr. Selwyn Vickers, who is the Senior Vice President of UAB School of Medicine. So we had a very distinguished group of participants. The roundtable went well. There were a number of questions, a lot of good feedback, positive feedback. But my takeaway was that the HUD officials expressed their support and willingness to provide technical assistance to the City of Birmingham, and as well as training to the local communities to ensure that the success of this new initiative. Following the roundtable, we had a tour of our Campus of Hope, and I had the pleasure of accompanying Secretary Ben Carson on this tour of our Campus of Hope. And during the tour, he interacted with all the agency partners, the residents, and several of our participants at Campus of Hope. In fact, one of his staff, they were trying to usher him out to another event, and he took his time to go to each of our partners' tables to interact with the partners, interact with the residents, and he was most interested in the health and wellness component as well as the education, and took a moment to share with the participants how important education and health and wellness is to your ability to move through the self-sufficiency track. So we were very delighted to have him. We also had, I think, Commissioner Lewis had an opportunity to meet the Secretary as well. He stopped by her table, and we also had Bertha Davis that was there as well as the president of CPAB, and had some little small talk with the two of them, and so it was a great day. And I guess finally I would just say the national exposure experienced by the Secretary's visit to Marks Village is certainly a high watermark. for us, and it inspires us to continue the success of our Campus of Hope, as well as planning and implementation, transformation of our Marks Village development through the RAD program. He did mention whether or not Marks Village was a RAD program, and wanted us to continue moving along those tracks. So those are my comments and my report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lundy. Are there any comments, concerns? All right. So that's great news about the summer meals program. I think that's something that we definitely all can support and be proud of. So kudos to you, Mr. Lundy, and your staff with working with our ministers to try to provide those opportunities for our residents. As far as the transitional housing partnership with the Firehouse Ministries, I'll reserve my comments and questions for, I think it's here on the agenda, so I have some questions, but I'll reserve those for later. And of course, Dr. Ben Carson's visit to Campus of Hope was, again, like you said, a tremendous watermark for this agency. So we thank you for what you did and your staff for making that happen. It was a well-attended event, very informative event, and I hope out of that roundtable discussion, out of that meeting, that we will begin to move forward with looking at opportunities for our residents, and not only in that particular area, but in all of our areas, at all of our sites. So again, kudos to you and staff for providing a wonderful experience, not only for Secretary Carson and his staff, but all of the residents and all of the community folks that were there. So thank you. All right, we have old business. Old business. Any old business that we need to discuss? So as you see, we are, if I'm not mistaken, we are filming the meeting today. Okay. All right. So we are live. We are filming the board meeting today. So just wanted to follow up on that piece. Looks like that's moving. I know we got little kinks we got to work out, but we're off to a great start with filming our meetings. But we just want to make sure that all of our residents are aware that we will be videoing our meetings. So Mr. Lundy, I would like to see if we could put together some type of campaign, if you will, to let our residents know that we are filming the meeting, so they can go online or wherever we'll be filming these meetings, or wherever we'll be showing the meetings, to let them know that they can go and view the meetings and find out what's going on in their community. So if we can move forward with some type of mini campaign to let the folks know that they don't have to drive to the meetings, that they can view it in the living rooms or where they are to watch the meeting. So very good. Is there any other old business that needs to be discussed? Any old business? One of the things, I don't know if this would be considered old business or new. I guess it would be old, but one of the things that I would like to discuss very briefly, I know summer is upon us, and I know we have our summer program coming up, and so I had a couple questions. I just want to make sure that we're going to have a robust summer program. I know this time, sometime last year, I think it was, we discussed some things as far as the summer program, how we can make it more robust. And so I had a couple questions, Mr. Lundy, if you'll be answering them, or your staff, or what have you.
So we do have our supervisor of the community centers, Ms. Brantley, and so Ms. Brantley is on her way to the podium to answer the more detailed
All right. Okay.
questions you might have.
Well, they won't be too detailed. I know the summer program is coming upon us, and one of the things that we discussed, I think last year, was how we could extend the program. I don't know what the days are for the program, but we discussed the viability of extending the program maybe a little bit longer throughout the summer. And so I just wanted to know how did y'all come up with the schedule, the dates, and if you were able to consider extending the program a little bit longer throughout the summer.
So good morning to everybody. So yes, to answer your question, the summer camp will begin June 4th through July the 26th. So it will be an 8-week program this year. And the hours will be 9 to 3:30 every day.
Okay, and so the last year, how long was the, I don't know if you own it now. Am I
I
on?
can't,
Yeah, you, okay, yeah. So last year's program, how long was that program?
that program actually was 5 weeks.
Okay,
And then we went into another area where we did like a family more centered event where the kids were out as far as the youth employment program. But this year we're extending that back to 8 weeks. So they will be hired for 8 weeks from 9 until 3:30.
okay,
So we actually extended their days and their time they'll be getting paid.
okay, very good. Other question I had was as far as the folks that will be working the camp. I think last year, the way I asked the question was I asked, were all of the folks that work in the camp, are they residents or they residents of public housing?
Yes, sir. So the summer youth employment program are for residents only, teens 14 to 18 years of age.
Okay, so the summer youth program is for just residents only.
Correct.
So there's no one else working at our sites for the summer that aren't residents.
Right, as far as for the summer youth, yes. Now, we do have staff members that we do employ, and those are residents and HABD staff members as well.
Okay, so outside of the residents and HABD employees,
Correct.
those are the only folks that are working for the summer.
Right.
Okay, all right,
Yes, sir.
very good, okay, all right, okay. I had heard otherwise,
Oh,
so,
no,
okay,
Not to my knowledge, and I sign off on that, so no, sir.
Okay,
It's only being summer youth employment kids who are from public housing, all 13 sites.
okay, very good. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things I know that we used to do in the past that was done, I personally thought it was a good idea, was that the resident leadership was given an opportunity to work, kind of given the first opportunity to work the summer camp. I don't know if we still do that, but the resident leadership were given first dibs on opportunities to work for the summer camp. I think it's a great idea because these are folks that already know, they know our kids, right? They with them all throughout the year with different programs and initiatives. And so if that's not happening, I think it'd be a great thing to go back to if we're not doing that, to allow our resident leadership an opportunity to work with our kids and to make a little money over the summer.
So in times past, we have had resident leaders to work in our summer camps. Additionally, for the summer, we hire an additional person to assist with summer camp, and that's usually what they work. And from my understanding, we still have them on board to come back. They don't begin until June the 4th. So right now, we're still in process of getting them hired on with the Human Resource Department.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions from my colleagues concerning the summer camp?
Okay, I didn't understand the part that you said about the resident leadership.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
said they are hired them?
Some of them have been hired. They're going to be hired through the agency that we use to hire for the 4-hour person for the summer, and they can apply through that agency, and that's how they get on with the program, like we've done in the past. I don't want to call names, but some people know who they are.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, okay. Any other questions? All right,
All right?
thank you. All right. All right, is there any new business? Any new business? All right, moving on down, financial services.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, as you know, Ms. Abington, she's not here today, who normally does the report for financial services, but we have Ms. Celine Nikashama, who is the accounting manager, who will be giving the report today. Celine, you'll do well.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I'm here to present two sets of financial statements for the month of March 2019. The first, am I on?
I don't know that this.
Yes, it does sound like it.
The first state will be for the public housing and the central office and department. As you can follow me on the financial that you have, it's the one where the revenue is on 29 million. Okay, and I'm going to try to explain any difference that above 10% of the budget. Number one,
What's the presentation of? What's this thing?
Does everybody have
Go
it?
ahead, Samantha.
okay.
Presentation.
Go ahead, Samantha.
Okay, number one is the insurance proceed. That's over budget because of the fire damage was uncompleted and we received more than what was budgeted. Okay, number two, the training and travel is under budget, but as we get close to the end of the fiscal year, it's going to catch up to where it needs to be. And as summer is coming and more people are going to be traveling and training, that line should be able to catch up with what was budgeted. Number three, the other admin costs are under budget because most of the bills for the year are not due yet. Most of them are going to be paid in May, like the software maintenance, the membership, and the advertising. Most of them are going to be paid only in May. So as we are getting close to the end of the fiscal year, it's going to get to where it needs to be for the year. Number four and number five kind of go hand to hand. It's the resident service salaries and the resident service benefits. They are kind of under budget so far because most of the position are filled with temporary employees, and the agents where they doesn't pay any benefits for them. So as those positions are being filled, this line item is going to get closer to what was budgeted. On number six, not French. On number six, the resident service are under budget because so far we have only 6 sites that have asked for their funding. So as more sites come and ask for the quarterly funding, we are going to be closer to what we are supposed to be before the end of the fiscal year. So this is only up to March, so we funded more sites, but we funded them in April and May. So by the time we bring back the financial for the month of April and May, those numbers are going to have changed. On number 7, the utility, the water and sewer are over budget because the utility company have increased their rates during this fiscal year. So I think now that they are already increased it, we should be seeing they are not going to move anymore because the winter is over and we are where we are supposed to be. So this should stay the same until the end of the fiscal year. Okay, number 8 and number 9, really, they go hand to hand. Number 8 is the maintenance material is over budget. And number 9, maintenance control cost is over budget. Because as we are getting ready for the REAC inspection, we had to buy more material. We had to make sure that we get close to looking good. So that's why we spend as much as we can. We are over budget, but before the end of the fiscal year, we should be where we need to be. And lastly, number 10 is the protective services. We are really over budget because of Freedom Manor. It was budgeted for 12 months, but since it was being closed, so we paid in 4 months. That's why we should have paid in 12 months. So now we are not going to move anymore on that line. So we should be where we need to be for the end of the fiscal year.
Excuse me, can you repeat what you said? I couldn't hear that. You said on number 10,
On number
the protective services, labor. What is that?
We are over budget because we paid in 4 months what we should have paid in 12 months.
You paid what in a full month?
All the salaries for the people, freedom men or protective services. For
Oh,
freedom
okay,
men.
okay, for security.
Yes, security for freedom men. It was
Okay.
paid in 4 months, but it was budgeted for 12 months. So since we paid more in 4 months, but it's going to be spread, it should have been spread in 12 months, we paid it in 4 months.
Okay. All right, and why was that?
Because it was being closed, so.
And so you paid,
Yes,
okay,
we
gotcha,
paid
gotcha,
it.
okay, all right, okay, very good.
Okay, and then the second. The second set of financial, let me see. On the last page, all in all, for public housing and central office, we are in a deficit of 3,701. But the revenue is more than 29 million. So it's, in my computation, is less than 1%. So I'm sure before the end of the fiscal year, that number is going to change by next month, I'm sure. And by the end of the fiscal year, it's going to be what was budgeted to be. That was for the public housing and central office. So now I'm going to do the second set. That's the Section 8 financial reports. It's the one where the revenue is 2,000,001. Second set. And like I did for public housing, I'm going to try to explain anything that has 10% difference with the budget.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so
Okay, thank you. Okay, and the first item that's 10% outside the budget is the fund recovery. Fund recovery is under budget because so far the Section 8 is trying to train people to know how to collect fraud collection. So as we are getting more people and they are learning how to collect fraud recovery, that line item should be going up and it's going to be closer to what was budgeted for the fiscal year. Number 2 is other income. It's under budget because right now the agency is absorbing all the incoming portable to increase our leasing numbers. But what's happening when you're increasing and you're getting everybody who's incoming, becoming your tenant, you are not getting the admin fees anymore. So the numbers of lease goes up, the admin fee go down. But so we had to choose, so we want more tenants to be HABD tenants, so that's what we are losing. We are not really losing the admin fees. As we get to the fiscal year now, we know what number we are at. We'll plan accordingly for the future. On number 3, the insurance proceeds is over budget because the Section 8 department was charged with the property insurance for the McCoy building where they reside. So now the McCoy building, they are paying for the insurance for the McCoy building. Number 4, gas is over budget, but since winter is over, the cost should be relatively where it should be now. So we are not going to use as much gas as we use in the winter. And we know that Alabama gas increased the rates a little, but I think now we should be where we need to be for the fiscal year. By the end of next month, we should know that we'll be closer to what was budgeted for the fiscal year. And number 6, the contract cost is over budget because there was a major leak at the McCoy building, and we had to replace the air conditioning unit. But overall, by the end of the fiscal year, we should know where we are supposed to be. And for the Section 8 financial reports, all in all, they have a profit of 222, which is really close to what they were supposed to be. We are budgeted 244, but they are 222, so it's very close to what was budgeted for the fiscal year for Section 8.
All right, you can proceed.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we have, I guess that will be item 2, approval of charge-offs for a period ending March 31st, 2019.
Yes.
Which be you want to take those one by one?
Yes, I'll
Okay,
do
well, we'll start with March.
Yes.
Approval of charge-offs for period ending March 31st, 2019.
Yes.
Does everybody have it? Okay, all right, you can proceed.
For the month of March 2019, we have 84,260.02 as asking for write-off. The 84,000 is made up of 50,000 of it is rent. 4,388 is late fees. The maintenance fees are 10,759. Legal fees are 10,919. Retro rent is 8,108. And then the fee that was incurred after the issuance of rate is 44,480.
All right.
So it's
Yep, so looking at the numbers here for March,
yes.
and looking at the breakout here, $50,000 of that amount is rent. The late fees is 4,000, maintenance charges is 10,000, legal fees is 10,000. What it's telling me is that it looks like we're still just not doing a real good enough job of collecting the rent, is what it's telling me. $84,000 charge-off. I still think we have some work to do, and these numbers show that. And I know we're putting processes in place, and we're trying to. I know staff, Mr. London Union staff, are doing a lot to try to get these charge-offs down. You know, I know in December and January, I understand that one of the explanations was that, yeah, they don't do set-outs in December and January. And I definitely understand that. And I think generally after that, you'll see higher charge-offs in the months after that. But, here we are headed into, 6 months later. And it just seems to me that it looks like the same thing to me. Well, the numbers show that. And so I think we still have some work to do in the areas of charge-offs. So, don't know what the remedy is. I just know that these are high. Okay. You can proceed unless my colleagues have anything they want to say.
I thought the 84,000 would be cut in half. Is that not so? Is it 50% off on
No.
the total amount?
No, total balance is $84,260.02 for March. That was the amount of the charge-offs.
But I thought the deductions would be the late fee and different things like that taken off, and it knocked it down to 40-something.
So the late fees here is $4,000.
But it
Now,
has,
now, I don't know, are we still, so when we did away with the late fees, I don't know when that went into effect. So it seems to me from this report, that's, the late fees are still on the books.
So,
I think it's supposed to be taken off.
Mr. Blankenship, I think that's probably before the
Correct.
that
These are late
went
fees
into
that were
effect.
already out there.
Right.
We're no longer charging late fees.
Right.
But these are late fees for accounts that already had them. We didn't go back and remove late fees for accounts that were already
Right.
charged late fees because the approval was to make that effective. I think we did April.
So we should say it like in June,
Yeah.
July.
So moving forward, we're gonna stop seeing the late fees on there. But for anybody that's still sitting out there that has a late fee before we stop charging them, it's still gonna be.
That's still moving forward. Okay.
I think that's gonna be a, Mr. Chairman, I think that's gonna be a policy issue, because if you now have late fees, and you know that we're not charging going forward, what kind of incentive do you have to pay those late fees?
I don't know. That to me, that sounds like, that sounds, I don't know if that's a policy problem or there's something that management needs to look into. I don't know, but.
So I would just add to the discussion that, you know, obviously we understand that the rent is based and structured on your ability to pay. And if you have very little money, then the way this program works, you pay very little rent. And there comes a time, you know, we knock on doors, there comes a time when the person on the other side of the door has to pay the rent. And so, you know, whether it's a question of collecting the rent, I think that we'll find that the effort is probably there to collect the rent. The challenge that we face, and it's true in this public housing program across the country, that is sometimes, unfortunately, people decide not to pay for whatever reason. Maybe there are other challenges that they're experiencing that's prevented them to consider rent as a top priority. So we've been looking at how can we engage residents as they come in through the front door to get them signed up with incentive programs so that they would be more inclined to pay rent. We will find that a lot of the folks that are being evicted are people who are paying very little rent. And so it's not a matter of they got a job, lost a job, and then couldn't pay. And if that should happen, obviously all they need to do is to report that to the manager's office, and we will make the appropriate adjustments. We're going to continue, obviously, Mr. Chairman, to make every effort to collect every dime that we can. The other thing that we've been discussing over the months, and that is there were a number of families that were out there in abeyance, was out there waiting for the sheriff department to come and set them out. And so they've been sitting out there for some time. And as the sheriff department catches up, then we push them forward. And so there were a number of things that we've been looking at. We've been tracking and how long it's been in the attorney's office, how long has the manager been sitting on it. And so along this track, And then how long does it take the court to make a decision on the writ? And then how long it's once, because you can't set anybody out until after you have a writ, execute the writ. And it could be 30-something days. And so we're preparing a report. And in this report, you can see how the tracking of where these cases were along the process. So there's a lot of, circumstance that will eventually, at the end of the day, sort of dictate how much we're writing off. And if we were able to set people out at the time that we get the writ, probably we cut it in half significantly. So you can look at the number, how much money was out there waiting for the eviction. And then obviously to begin the process, we gotta work real hard with the residents to encourage those residents who decide not to pay timely and to consider rent as a priority. So it is an ongoing challenge, but I feel confident that we're getting to a point that we'll be able to detail every case and what happened. There were some cases where the legal charges weren't posted in a timely fashion, whatever that may be. So at some point you gotta write those off too. That adds onto the write-offs as well. So those are just some of the things. It's not a simple one issue reason. There's a number of reasons why we have to why we end up with this amount to write off. Then you of course you gotta, I've always said that the size of the agency is a very large agency, and so part of doing business is going to be writing stuff off. But hopefully it won't be this. We're not looking to have this number, but we're going to always have to come to the board to write off bad debt.
All right. Yeah, and so I don't want to belabor the point. I think we all agree we got work to do. We need to do better. But it seems to me, I thought, in my opinion, I thought we were trending in the right direction a few months ago. I thought, looking at the numbers, that I saw it trending downward. But after the last few months, it seems like it's spiking back up. So I'm concerned. I don't like where we're going as far as the trends. So hopefully over the next few months we'll start trending back down as far as the charge-offs are concerned. All right, if you can go back to, so we're here in April now. You want to discuss April? Okay.
Okay. Commissioners, for the month of April, we are asking for $43,271.29 to be written off.
I think that's what I'm talking about.
The breakdown for those charges are $14,895 is rent, $1,380 is late fees, $9,056.51 is maintenance charges, legal fees are $7,806, retro rent is $10,358, and the fee that was incurred after issuance and rates is $17,689. That comes to $43,271.29 for the month of April 2019.
I'm sorry. I think we had it on the agenda. I guess we were supposed to approve March's charge-offs unless we want to do this. If it's a pleasure of the board, I guess we can do them both with one motion if that's the pleasure, or we can break them out and do them separately. So my recommendation, since you've already gotten started, with April, then that would just be one motion. We can approve both March and April with one motion, if that's the pleasure of this body. Okay. Are there any questions? Are there any questions concerning April's charge-offs? Any comments? Hearing none, if I can entertain a motion to approve the charge-offs for period ending March
Mr. Chairman,
31st
I make a
and
motion
30th.
that we approve the charge-offs for the two, is it 2 months?
Yeah, March
March and April.
and April.
Right.
All right.
Okay, second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. So both period ending March 31st and period ending April 30th, charge-offs have been approved. All right. Thank you.
Commissioners.
All right. All right. So we're Human Resources, Mr. Lundy.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have one item, have our Vice President of Human Resources, Ms. Jefferson Mitchell. I believe last month you asked us to come back with an update on report on gap insurance program. Ms. Mitchell.
So, Commissioners, in March, the board requested that we revise the policy for the employee retirement gap insurance and create some criteria for approval. And so if you look at your attachment, and you should have an attachment, page 86. So attached, you will find the revised policy for your review. The information in black is what is currently written. The information is in red is what we are suggesting to add, and then the information with the strike through is what we are requesting to remove. And then also attached, you have the criteria to qualify for approval for the gap, for the retirement insurance. And you also have the COBRA rates. I believe Commissioner Todd wanted the COBRA rates to be attached. And then you will also see the attachment about the who can get Medicare. That's attached as well. You all have any questions?
Yeah, so I think we approved this item at the last board meeting
Yes.
for the gap coverage, basically kind of
Yeah, thought we did.
eliminate the gap coverage.
Yeah.
I had concerns at the last meeting, and I still have concerns. And to be quite frankly with you, I really felt like we were, well, I can't speak for anybody else. I'm going to speak for myself. I felt compelled to make a decision when I didn't have all the information. This would have been helpful to have before the resolution was passed. All right, because this is giving us the information that kind of explains it in detail. And the explanation was that it was the end of the year budget, you were trying to get it off the books or what have you, and it had to be approved. You wanted to go ahead and move on it at the last meeting. And, you know, I felt like I wasn't given enough time to make an informed decision as to this resolution. And so, moving forward, I think it'd be helpful to have the information for this body. That way we can do our due diligence and our homework before we vote on this stuff. And so I honestly feel like I didn't have the proper information to make the informed decision, because if I'd have had this information, I would have voted no. I would have voted no because if you are, let's say you're an employee and you retire and you're making $30,000 a year, how are you going to afford COBRA insurance at $1,800? Can't afford it. I've already done the numbers. It's not affordable. And so I understand we've got language in here to talk about a case-by-case basis, and you got stipulations in here. You got your bullet points stating all the stipulations about employee may be approved if you meet, you know, if you're not, you don't qualify for some of these options. But I feel like what we did at the last meeting concerning this gap insurance was in my opinion, not a good thing for the employees. And quite frankly, if I had recourse, I would probably see how we could open this back up for discussion. Because if you're 62 years old, you've been working at this agency for 15, 16 years, and you're asking for gap coverage for a couple years until you could qualify for some other options. It seems to me if you put in that much working time with this agency, the agency should be responsible for paying the gap coverage for their employees. So I think what it does is it says to our employees, hey, you know, we appreciate all your hard work, but you know, we're just gonna shake your hand and let you retire, and we're not gonna give you any insurance coverage. Good luck, and you're gonna be responsible if you want insurance, your COBRA coverage. If you got a family, it's gonna be $1,800 a month.
Exactly.
I don't know how you can afford that. Now, there are some people that can't afford it. There are some folks that are in the upper bracket, maybe some staff members. If you retire at 62, you can afford that. But there's some that cannot. And I'm speaking up for the folks that cannot afford it. And so, in my opinion, I think we made a mistake. That's just my opinion. I'm going to be quiet.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you. What is the process for rescinding that? How
So,
can it be done?
Mr. Kendrick, I guess the question is, we approved this measure at the last board meeting. Commissioner Jackson was asking what our recourse is for this measure.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to have 24 hours to look at the Roberts Rules of Order and look at any bylaws of this organization to see if something that's been voted on, that's been motioned, seconded, and voted on, if that can be rescinded. And so I'd just like to have a little time to do that before I speak on it, because obviously that's pretty serious.
Okay.
It's pretty serious to kind of go back
So
in
if
and
I
open
can
it up.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Mr. Lundy.
I think I'd also like to hear from, maybe at the next meeting or even a special meeting, I'd like to hear from some of these employees who are about to retire, who are really thinking about this, or who have retired and now see what the impacts are, so that I mean, you're hearing from some people, and I think that's worthwhile to hear, for the whole board to hear from people who are affected by it.
Very good. Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
I'm sorry.
So,
Mr. Lundy.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add that I think it would be important to have our Vice President of Financial Services available to. She seems to be the most knowledgeable staff on this particular subject, and from my understanding, it's my understanding that we've not penalized any of our employees who have left our employment. And I think she mentioned something to the effect that when it was put in, that there were, and I don't want to misquote her, but there were some concerns about how many people actually took advantage of it. So I think it would be good to have her present to at least so that this board will have all the information and will be able to make an informed decision. One of the things that was mentioned in the board action was that we can decide, we can determine that, and when we say case-by-case basis, we can decide that anybody who decides to retire at 62, that there would be a full review of their status and a recommendation to this board as to what action we would want to render. And so the board can weigh in on each and every employee who decides to retire at the age of 62. Ms. Averton, I want to mischaracterize her report a couple months ago. One of the concerns was the financial soundness of this agency by carrying on its books certain figures that would really be an issue. Has nothing to do with the ability for the agency to manage its finances. It's just the way that the rules have changed that creates a heavy burden on this agency that, and I'm not quite sure that the board certainly wouldn't want that to be a case. So I think perhaps having a little bit more discussion, having Ms. Abington available, and as Commissioner Clark recommended, that any employee who would like to be a part of the discussion, who may be facing retirement or who recently faced retirement can weigh in as well.
And so we do currently have 2 people that are on the program. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Ms. Averton said that they were going to be grandfathered in. Now, I can't speak on the finance piece, but just to piggyback off of what Mr. Lundy was stating from what Ms. Averton was stating, is that, yes, it is a large amount that's because of the policy, the auditor is counting, I believe, all the employees, whereas this would be a case-by-case study. But again, I won't speak on that piece. This was a presentation for both 2 parts, and so I won't speak on that finance piece. But we also have, we can look at the list and see how many employees are, getting close to that retirement age. We've looked at it before. It's not a big amount, but we do currently have 2 that are on it as we speak right now.
Yeah, Commissioner Jackson.
Would it be out of order to get feedback from the employees? Would that be
Did
in
you get
order?
feedback today?
No, I mean, whatever.
Oh.
No, it wasn't. And inclusiveness is very important.
Right.
And when we make decisions for other people, they have no input in what we make. I think we need to hear from them.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the consensus that we may need to get employee feedback from about this, and quite frankly, to be honest with you, I don't mind saying that some of the feedback I got was from employees that were concerned about this measure, and so I think that would be helpful for us to get information from the employees to see how they feel about this policy. But what concerns me is that when we start talking about case by case, that concerns me, because we are a policy making body, and we don't operate on case by case. We make policy. That's what we're here for. And so case by case, that's not why we're here. Is to we're here to make policy, put policies in place. And so long after you're gone, Mr. Lundy, long after we're gone, we've got to put policies in place. And so but let's say there's another CEO 10, 15 years that doesn't feel the way you do. Now you've given them the latitude to make decisions on the employees when they may not have the same alignment of thinking. And so we have to be mindful that we're putting policies in place for not only this, for the staff and for right now, but for generations to come. So let's keep that in mind.
So, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the board, we can table this issue and reconvene with more information and the opportunity to have a more full-throated discussion about the various items, issues, and the implications on this agency, regardless of which decision that the board chooses to make.
Okay, very good, very good.
So just to make sure that I know what we need to bring back, so we need to get the feedback from the employees and bring that back, and then just additional information? Is that what we're asking for?
Well, I guess, yeah, I guess as far as next steps, Mr. Lundy, I think that's what she's asking, what she needs to do. My recommendation is to meet with Mr. Lundy and you guys come up with a game plan as far as maybe putting a group together as far as staff members and getting their input.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, real estate development.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have my Vice President of Real Estate Development and Capital Improvements, Mr. Corey Stallworth, who will bring to you one action item and one report, I believe.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
First item for approval on real estate development's agenda today is the approval to use unrestricted non-federal funds to resolve routine maintenance and or structural repairs for 13 units at Tom Brown Village and enter into a service agreement with Firehouse Shelter Ministries for such units. And so as Mr. Lundy stated in his report earlier, HABD is moving forward with the RAD conversion of 22 units at Tom Brown. After these units convert to RAD, we would transfer the subsidy from Tom Brown to Farrington Apartments, which HABD will acquire that site upon RAD closing. And so this approval is twofold. The first fold is to approve Firehouse Ministries to utilize 13 units at Tom Brown for their transitional homeless program. And the second approval is for HABD to utilize non-federal funds to address any issues relating to routine maintenance and any structural issues that may arise within these 13 units, which we really don't expect any major issues to arise out of these 13 units, but we just want to make sure that the funding is committed just in case. And so through this agreement with Firehouse Ministries, HABD will lease 13 units for a nominal fee of $1. Firehouse Ministries will utilize their own grant funding to house and cover utility costs for participants in their program. And so all of these units are contiguous within Tom Brown. They're located near 41st Street, which is along the backside of the development there. And as Mr. Lundy stated in his report, Firehouse Ministries will basically be very hands-on, and they'll actually provide management on-site as well as security. They'll provide transportation for the participants within this program. The program will also provide daily lunches, clothing, laundry facility, and basic health care for their participants. And so the economic impact, of course, as I said earlier, the nominal fee is $1 for each unit, and HABD will commit to commit funds not exceeding $25,000 for those 13 units. Are there any questions?
Yeah, so you see the fee is $1 per unit?
Yes,
Is
a
the
nominal
fee that you
fee.
charge in the firehouse shelter? Is that
Yes.
a one-time fee?
Yes, that's a one-time fee.
Okay. All right, and how many units is this? You said 13 units?
So it's 13 units. We're transferring 22 to Farrington, but out of those 22, Firehouse Ministries have identified 13 that they would like to utilize.
And the firehouse shelter will be managing these units?
Yes, so they will actually have a program specialist who will be on site daily to make sure that these units are kept. They do inspections for each unit, so they will have oversight daily.
Okay, and the tenant agreement will be with the firehouse shelter,
Yes.
not with HABD?
Now with HABD. So HABD role in this will basically be to make sure that the apartment, the structure of the building is kept up to par, because we still may have residents in some of these buildings.
Okay.
But to make sure that if there are any roofing issues that need to be addressed, any windows, any sewer lines that need to be repaired leading up to these structures.
And how long is this agreement for?
And so this agreement, MOU, Trail, do you? Okay, so this agreement will go forth until the site is redeveloped. And so these units are located on the back end of the site, which is projected now to be the third phase of redevelopment for Tom Brown. And so we know that we're at least a year and a half out for that.
So this is temporary housing for a year?
Yes,
year and a
this is
half?
temporary housing so that these units won't lie vacant and that they'll be utilized.
Okay, and the other thing I want to ask is, have you engaged with any other social service agency, or are we just dealing directly with the firehouse shelter? Did you speak with any other social service agencies that do this same type of work?
Yes, there were initial conversations.
Yeah, we reached out to One Roof and was able to strike an agreement with One Roof. And, you know, typically there's always a major challenge with transitional housing and housing the homeless. And that's one of the things that as a public housing program across the country, I really don't think we do a real good job at housing the homeless. And this is just one opportunity to house some families that are receiving social services, direct social services, counseling, that will help them transition to independent living. So this is like the step right before independent living. So you just kind of, you know, you got a roommate and you're being taught how to take care of an apartment, how to integrate within the community. They've already expressed enthusiastically how they want to be a part of the larger community and be a part of the community centers and all the activities that are taking place in Tom Brown. They have the wherewithal, they have a grant that they can provide the wraparound services to make sure that these individuals do well in the program. They understand that when it's time to do the major redevelopment of Tom Brown and demolish the units and do the major redevelopment, that this will run out, and it's just a short-term opportunity. What's happening across the country when the housing authorities get to this point where they're transferring assistance, they just board up the units, and nobody can use them. They just board it up, and then you've got to spend maintenance funds just to make sure that nobody's going in those units. Plus, it becomes a blight on that respective community. So it's an opportunity for us to even dig a little deeper, do something a little bit more transformative. It's going to help the larger community, and it's not just public housing. We can't use these units anymore for the public housing, low rent housing program. We can't do it. They're off the books. One of the other options is to board it up and just leave them vacant. And I just think that would be a shame when there are other service providers that are serving residents, citizens of Birmingham, that can take advantage of this. And perhaps one of the things we talked about, when they transition out of there, maybe they can transition, get on our waiting list, and move into public housing or into our Section 8 program.
One more question. Have you engaged with the community as far as this program, the CPAB president, the Tom Brown resident president? Have you guys engaged with them to let them know what your plans are?
So we haven't engaged with the CPAB at this time, but that is a part of our, plan to engage with those residents.
I'm just of the mindset that, when when you bring in programs into a community, we have leadership that's already established. So I thought it probably would have been a good idea to maybe engage with the neighborhood, with the leadership before it came to this body as far as a resolution. At least let them know what you're doing, have the courtesy of saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. Not saying that they had to be a vote or anything, but just say, hey, we're planning on, bringing these units in from Firehouse Shelter. We just wanted to let you know what we were doing. Yeah. I think Commissioner Jackson was, yeah.
Thank you. The firehouse used to house you for 3 nights, and then it had to be an interval before you could come back for another 3 nights. Is that the way it's still working?
No, so this is a specialized program where these participants will actually be able to be a part of this long term. And so this is not like the short-term shelter housing, but this is a more long-term program with wraparound services. So they'll actually have case managers that keep up with them as they advance through the program. So the same residents will be staying on site daily until they complete the entire program.
Okay, so it's going to be a whole new set of rules change. I have a problem with, I'm going to say this quickly, I have a problem with organizations that get these huge grants and they don't do what they're supposed to do with this money when they get these grants. And then the people that need services are not getting them. Now, how are you going to monitor that?
So that'll be monitored through the Firehouse Shelter program. From my understanding and my research, I mean, they've been very thorough. They do meet their mission of assisting homeless people transition and laying back into the larger community.
I know it was a lady pregnant with twins. She and a gentleman friend had hoboed their way all the way from New York to Birmingham, and then they were told that they didn't have any room for them. And I've often wondered whatever happened to that couple as far as they having shelter or whatever. And it bothers me to see now say if you get funds, you already getting funds, you get money otherwise, then make sure that it's used for people who actually need it.
And the Firehouse Ministries, they have a very thorough vetting process in place where you really have to certify that you are in need of this programming and that you are in fact homeless, not just staying with another relative, but you are homeless.
Commissioner Lewis, you finished this, Commissioner Jackson?
I'm too, yeah,
Okay,
thank
all right, Commissioner Lewis.
Okay, how would the resident council and the CPAB board fit in this, on that it's on housing authority property, which they don't have anything to do with it, but as far as the resident council, are these people gonna be involved in whatever the residents doing in that community? How is that gonna fit in, and how is this gonna, affect the other part of the community? Are they going by housing authority rules, or are they going by their own rules, and they all write that together? I kinda see a problem.
So I would think that the housing authority rules would supersede any rules that they have in place, and then the second tier would be the Firehouse Shelter rules that they would have to abide by. But the participants of the program will have free reign to participate in, if there are any programs that our community center is providing on site.
Are they gonna work with the CPAB and the resident council? That's what I mean.
And so we want
Is it gonna be a separate entity? That's what we're trying to find out.
they won't benefit from the tenant participation funds. There won't be any connection there because it won't be part of the low-rent housing program any longer. If the resident council, decides to include them in their activities, which I would be inclined to think that they typically would, then they would be able to participate in whatever activities that are occurring on site. And for those programs that are specific to residents and are funded through resident funding, then we would have to really stay focused on the eligibility factor. I was just thinking about, like, for example, every year we have a basketball tournament, and you have to be either a public housing resident, Section 8 resident, or a member of the Boys and Girls Club. And so when it comes to specific funding, we have to make sure that the funding services are actually going to our residents. But this is just an opportunity for housing those families who are homeless, who are transitioning into the larger community. It's just it's an opportunity to utilize the actual buildings, bricks and mortar, that otherwise would have to be boarded up and just, and not afford that opportunity. So it is, I would say it is cutting edge in the sense that it's new, but I think that, knowing this, knowing CPAB, the residents, that we can work it out, that it would not be a disruption to anything else that's going on. I would think so, because they're going to have counselors right there on site. It's going to be managing these adults, and so I don't think it'll be an issue, but certainly having some discussion and working together with the various groups and working with the Firehouse Ministry is certainly something that's desirable, and I think they would be appreciative of that relationship as well.
So the last thing that I had was as far as legalities, as far as a contract is concerned. So if we approve this measure today, will our legal team be responsible for putting together some type of agreement with the firehouse shelter? Because I could foresee some legal issues with it being on our site if we don't have an ironclad agreement between HABD and the firehouse shelter. So have those discussions already taken place, or are you waiting on the approval, the resolution from this body to engage with the legal team in order to put together some type of agreement?
So the legal team has already been brought in as regarding to this agreement. There's been a draft template that has been developed, but it's left as a draft to see what would come out of this board meeting. But our legal counsel will review that agreement before we execute it.
Okay. So you put together a draft template of the agreement?
Yes, there is a draft template.
Okay. And you want this board to approve it without looking at the draft template?
The MOU.
Yeah, so there's an MOU.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I apologize, I used the wrong term. There's an
That's okay.
MOU.
That's okay. Yeah. Okay. Is the MOU? Does anybody have possession of the MOU today? Can we look at the MOU?
I do have the MOU. I just don't have copies of it, but I do
Okay.
have the MOU that we could circulate.
Commissioner Jackson?
Thank you. I think we need to discuss further too about the use of programs with the firehouse being occupying some of the property, like Mr. London was saying, because if you know people, you're going to have some rules written down to go by, and you can't assume. Otherwise, we will assume, and it's bad to assume. So I think we need to get something in writing as to the use of property and whether or not those people can be a part of the housing authority's property activities. It needs to be decided upon for it to work out. Then it may not work out then because it has to be monitored, but certainly I would try to get it where it would work out in writing.
Well, my concern, well, first off, let me say that I think it's a good thing. I really do. To provide those units for the homeless. I definitely think it's a good thing that we're doing this. I'm just concerned about, you know, the legality and the responsibility that this board has. Because if something happens and the firehouse shelter files suit against the housing authority, it's going to be against the housing authority and the board of commissioners. That's what it's going to say. So you're going to file suit against this agency and this board. And so I just want to make sure that we have all the information that we need to make a decision, you know, before we move forward. But probably would have been helpful to see some type of draft document or something of the MOU to see what the framework plans were. But I'm going to. I think that in this instance, I think we can move forward. In my opinion, I think we can move forward on this. I would like to see some type of MOU here, in you know, within the next few days. But I think that this is a good measure, and I just want to make sure legally that we are covering all our bases, and that you know, we make sure that we're tight as far as our agreement is concerned. So. My questions have been answered. This matter is before us. Any more discussion or questions concerning this item?
Did you say we were gonna hold up on it? I meant
Well, that's the pleasure of this board. We you know, if you have some more questions or concerns, or you want to do more due diligence before we move forward on that, that's quite all right. That's fine.
I think we should, because like you said, if something goes wrong, we will have to be accountable as a board, and if I'm not mistaken, as individuals as well. When we had our training, the gentleman from Montgomery came, he said we can be sued individually or as a board.
That's correct. Yeah.
And so we need to cover ourselves, because I can't afford it.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Clark?
I think there's two things I'd like to hear after hearing this discussion. And I do think it's a good thing that we try to do this, particularly since we have excess capacity. But I think I'd like to hear the legal analysis, and I'd like to hear that what the comments of the residents who live there are saying. So some kind of sampling of the community.
All right, so I think that this board has spoken. So what's the pleasure? Would you like to entertain a motion to table this item?
I make a motion that we table this item.
Is there no time, are we up against any kind of clock here? We're not up against any kind of clock here, are we?
Yes, we are up against the clock because this is needed for our RAD closing, which we are anticipating closing first week in June. And so this is a condition that's required for us to close and transfer those 22 units to Barrington. And so if we don't have the board's approval regarding Firehouse Shelter Ministries and the use of non-federal funds, then that could possibly delay the deal and moving forward.
So, Mr. Starworth, the way I interpret that, there's no requirement that we have a program in place. And so we can say, for sake of the closing, is that we're just going to board up the units until further notice, and we'll give opportunity for the board to have a opportunity to review subsequent documentation, identification, and those kinds of concerns. If we can just pull and say, well, at this point we're not going to do it. We're going to move forward to closing, and that would be, I'm sure that's going to be fine, and we'll be able to go forward. So I don't see it as a issue in terms of moving forward with our RAD application. We'll just indicate that we, at this point in time, we'll just board up the units until further notice. And then we will, at that point, we'll give, next month, the board have an opportunity to kind of review the information and make a determination how it wants to go forward. Does that make sense to you? Corey?
Yes, and that's correct.
Yeah, well, that sounds better, because I don't want us to feel compelled to have to make a decision today when we haven't gotten, when we still need more information. If the closing is scheduled for June, and today is the 20th, that doesn't give a whole lot of time to for something to go wrong, or just in this case, for the board to want more discussion. When you stagger things that way, that leaves the opportunity for something to go wrong. If you want to, if it's the pleasure of this board, we can table this item. If you want to move to table this item until we've had further discussion, then that's our pleasure.
I think we should.
Okay. All right. Well, I can entertain a motion.
Oh, I motion that we table this item for further discussion.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, so we're going to table this item, and we will bring this up at a later date.
That's a good
May
program.
may I?
Okay, next on our agenda, commissioners, is a Section 3 update from our Section 3 coordinator, Ms. Jackie French. And this report is regarding our capital improvement project.
Can I get some IT help, please?
As we know, we're gonna have a time limit set to get, we're gonna have a time limit to meet the deadline that Corey has to have.
I think we'll be able to.
We'll be able to work it out.
We'll figure it out.
That's just a good program.
We'll work it out.
But the law is so thick. I don't see Miss Brown. I don't see Miss Brown. Miss Lonnie, don't you miss Miss Brown? I don't see Miss Brown. Isn't she still a president?
Brown.
Isn't she still a
Does she
president?
still put on the paper?
Yeah, she sent me text messages for like special occasions. She sent me a text message from her birthday.
Oh, really?
Thank you, Terrain.
But you know they have elections.
Good afternoon, board.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I promise I will not be before you long, hopefully, maybe. Section 3, Compliance and Workforce Development. I was asked to give us a synopsis of where we are as it relates to Section 3. And today what we're going to talk about are the key components to our Section 3 program. Those components are contracting, employment and training opportunities, entrepreneurship, workforce development, and reporting.
As it relates to contracting, these are the contracts that we have now. These are just some of the areas that they're in. Some of our contractors, they kind of do have double contracts. Like, for instance, we're under lawn care, we have Supreme Clean. So, you know, Supreme Clean may do lawn care for us. They may do the turnaround units. They have multiple, I guess you could say, duties or multiple contracts with us. These are the contractors that have self-certified themselves as Section 3 businesses, meaning, number one, they own their company at 51% and they are considered low income, or their employees at 30% are low to very low income, or they have subcontracted their work out to other Section 3 businesses. For instance, in construction, Gowdy and Trawick. Those are the two companies that are self-certified as Section 3 business concerns. One, Gowdy and Trawick, they subcontract a percentage of their contract to Section 3 business concerns. Employment and training opportunities. Now, these are the numbers based on from June of last year. As you can see with construction and then non-construction as well, these are the reported numbers. Section 3 residents hired is at 67 as of today. Of those 67, 50 are our housing residents. That's either public housing or Section 8. And as you can tell, our workers at Freedom Manor, those are Section 3 workers. That's just a pretty much a for real picture of our residents at the job site at Freedom Manor. Training. So as you know, with Section 3, it's a need to hire. So in most cases, if there's not a need to hire, you have an option of training. So this is a brick masonry workshop that Holohan they offered to our residents. This is the actual subcontractor who's offering this to two of our residents to teach them just the basics on brick masonry. AIDT is another way. We have two verified residents that are in the program at AIDT. They're learning construction trade as we speak. And then also the Campus of Hope. The Campus of Hope is a really good partner with us on Section 3. We have AIDT actually is at the office Campus of Hope recruiting. They're supposed to be recruiting, but they're still recruiting. Entrepreneurship. So as of now, right now, the Housing Authority and Operation Hope. Operation Hope is a nonprofit organization. They teach entrepreneurship classes. Right now, on Tuesdays, we have an entrepreneurship free workshop going on right now. Graduation is June 4th. We have a couple of our residents in this class looking to graduate on June 4th. When they leave this class, they will have everything that they need from the beginning, learning how to market their business, trying to understand if running a business is something that they want to do, or if it's just something that they want to do on the side, or they want to do it full time. At the end of this class, they will have everything that they need, learning about getting their business license, if they want to be an LLC. It just teaches them everything. Normally the class is 12 weeks, but Operation Hope has condensed the class to 7 weeks for our residents. It's held on Tuesday at the downtown location. This is not the last class. This is the first class. So there would be more opportunities for our residents to get into this entrepreneurship class. Workforce development. So what we're wanting to do, what we actually have done, we have joined with Amazon. Amazon will be coming to, our first pilot is Southtown. They will be coming to Southtown on May 28th on Tuesday, May 28th, Tuesday at 4:30. So this is what they are doing. So workforce development as it relates to soft skills. Amazon has a program now where they're wanting to come and talk to residents, people in the community, teaching them how not only how to fill out an application, how to keep the job, how to get the job, how to interview, the things that they are looking for within interviews. So we have partnered together to thanks Ms. Brantley, she's come up with the steps. It's the stages to employment potential and success. So this is just the pilot. It is in 2 weeks. We'll be releasing that to our residents. Also, Amazon has gone a step further. They are partnering with community engagement. So we're working on that right now to also teach the children with the summer youth program, teach them when they get their paycheck what they should be doing with their paycheck. So they're going to do 2 classes with our youth as well. Also, Jefferson County Workforce Development, they're offering the same soft skills to our residents. They have that class once a month. They're teaching the soft skills also. Of course, if you don't know what Jefferson County Workforce Development Center, that's the unemployment office. So once they go through those classes, they've partnered with Federal Human Resources to put on that class. And then Section 3 reporting. The Section 3 60002 report is due to HUD no later than 60 days from the from our fiscal year, which is June 30th. So as you all know, that is coming up. We're still compiling data to report to HUD. I definitely want to try to get that report in earlier than the 60 days, but June 30th, we're trying to get that report in. As of June 30th of 2018, we've met the Section 3 numerical goals set for hiring, 10% trade contracting, and we're a little shy with the non-construction contracting, and only because those are professional service contracts, and it's a little tough to point out Section 3 on those. Any questions?
Any questions?
No.
So, I heard you say it's a little tough to figure it out when it's professional service contracts. Itself kind of pulling that information out. In your opinion, what can be done if there's a professional service contract that has that component? What can be done to gather that information more readily?
Well, in the same class that Ms. Jackson spoke of, we did learn of ways that we could actually get those numbers. And one way we're looking into is actually by talking to that contractor and making sure that within the 3 years from having that contract, that they at least regardless of the level that they're hiring, is have them to make sure that they look at our Section 3 residence list. That's one way of just, making sure that they are looking at our residents first. Because unfortunately, with those type of services, it's hard for us to identify a resident that may be an architect or that can perform those duties. But regardless of the level that they're hiring for, we can hold them to at least 3 years when you're looking to hire, regardless of what it is that you're looking at our residents first.
Okay. So walk me through this process. When a company, when they go through the procurement process, the board approves the resolution, the staff puts together the contract with the company. Mm-hmm. Once that contract is signed, is there some type of onboarding process to where they understand the Section 3 compliance piece, that they are fully knowledgeable? Is there some type of declaration that they sign or something? Because what I would like to know is because what I don't want to happen is that we approve these contracts and then the contract is signed, they go ahead and proceed with doing the work and start to receive monies from that contract, and we don't know if they're being compliant.
Well, the process starts with the pre-bid meeting. So I'm invited to all the pre-bid meetings, and I talk on Section 3, letting everyone know who is interested in bidding on a particular contract. I talk to them, give a spiel about Section 3 and what their obligation is. I also inform them that there's a Section 3 language within the bid packet that they must sign, and included in that packet is the Section 3 plan. So once if they decide to bid, once they turn in their bid, I also let them know that if the Section 3 portion is not in there, then their bid is deemed non-responsive. So at that point, once everything is signed, then I'm to be notified that who won the contract. Therefore, then I'm to talk to them about their section, what they put in their Section 3 plan.
Is that after the contract is signed?
That's normally after the contract is signed.
Okay. Is that, so my concern is more post, after the bid is won. I understand that you guys have your pre-bid conference meetings, but I'm concerned about after the bid after they win the contract, what assurance do we have as a body that these companies are following the contract?
Well, that's something
as far as the Section 3 component is concerned.
Well, that's something that we can work on with our procurement department to do before the contract is signed, and that's I guess that would be at contract award.
Okay, all right. So I guess this question would be for you, Mr. Lundy. Are there situations where we have companies that win awards and the contract is executed and there's no contract compliance with Section 3 until after they've already started working?
So what typically should happen upon the award of the contract, the contract is monitored by staff through our Section 3 coordinator to ensure that those contracted services are providing, doing to the greatest extent feasible recruiting, hiring, and training of our residents. Now, typically, what happens, those construction dollars are the ones that I believe, for the most part, are required through the Section 3 language. But I know that this discussion about professional services, we can be intentional and say that it would be every contract period that you, as new hires, that you would look to reach out for those persons who would qualify as a Section 3 business or entity or a Section 3 participant. The challenge, as stated by Ms. French, is that when the professional services, you may not have residents at 80% of area median income who may fit some of the position descriptions for, let's say, for legal services. But what I've seen in this industry, what we can do, it is allowable, we could say to, let's say, the law firm that we want you to, maybe you won't be able to find a resident who qualifies, who's a lawyer, but someone who may be interested in pursuing a law degree, and begin to reach out and train and mentor those residents who may be interested in going that field. Because part of, making the decision on career path is exposure. And so to the extent that we could say, for example, I've had law firms, for example, say, well, we will hire residents to be our runner. And what they mean by that is to take legal documents in a package. And I guess I'm right with this correct with this, Mr. Attorney, and take it to one of their clients. I've seen situations where residents were recruited to accompany lawyers to the courthouse just to see the process, understand the process, so that it gets some exposure And maybe there won't be, the kind of earned dollars, but it could be some sort of stipend or way to say to the housing authority that, yeah, we believe in our Section 3 regulations, and we're going to do something, very creative to embolden the Section 3 program. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be construction. It can be professional services. Just got to be creative, and then we can require them to present to us before we sign off on any contract, a plan to move forward with that kind of recruitment and mentorship.
Very good, very good. Any questions, concerns?
I covered that.
Okay, all right. So thank you, Ms. French. I think that pretty much covered.
I have.
Oh, yeah, go. Oh, you got some more?
I have
Okay.
one more. I guess
Oh,
it's
sorry.
the
Okay.
point
All
of
right.
privilege.
Oh, okay.
I forgot. Okay. So it's also with workforce development. I know I have emailed everyone, but I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the collaboration between all the departments as it relates to Section 3 FSS and self-sufficiency. So on April the 16th, we had a job fair at the Birmingham Crossplex. And through our numbers, we had over 450 people to walk through the door. Of that 450 people, over 100 were actually housing residents, public housing and Section 8. So, and I just really want to thank every department, and I'm going to call them by name if you don't mind, because one thing that I have learned is that we can't do it all on Section 3 cannot move on its own. Right. So this was in collaboration with the FS department. So when I say thank you, that's anywhere from the procurement department, community engagement, IT, finance, public information, human resources, home ownership, Section 8, executive, and even security. It's so many times Ms. Flo would call and say, somebody asking about the job fair, I need more information. So we tend to forget about everybody, we didn't do it on our own. The job fair was a total success. Not even a week after we got a resident that actually got a job. There were 3 to 4 interviews that were reported the week after the job fair. So I just want to say thank you to everyone involved. It was a total success. We look forward for it to be moving, getting bigger. Next year we had over 40 vendors. That includes employers and community resources.
Well, very good. And I saw it on TV, as a matter of fact. I saw you on TV. And so,
yeah.
So but I was told that this was the largest job fair that we've ever had. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I was told. But
It was.
Well, it was up there.
Yeah.
It was up there.
Well, very good, very good. So I think that may conclude our questions. Reverend Todd is not here today, and he wanted me to ask a couple questions. I don't know if it's specifically 100% related to the Section 3 component, but I think it does. It's intertwined. He wanted me to ask as far as, and I don't know if it's directed to you or Mr. Lundy, but he wanted me to ask about minority participation as far as contracts. He wanted to know what is being done to increase the awareness to our minority business, our MBE businesses, to get that information out there to the public, to let them know when their bids, RFPs, RFQs, and things of that nature. Wanted to know how we were moving in that direction. And so we definitely want to make sure that question was asked today. And I told him that I would.
I think Ms. French has been working directly with procurement.
Yes.
To do more outreach.
Yeah, we have been working, Section 3 in the procurement department. We are actually working on doing business with, and that's going to be in collaboration with the city of Birmingham. That's going to be in collaboration with UAB, a lot of the big names, big construction companies. We're trying to get the word out that HABD, we look to contract with minority businesses. So that's something that we, unfortunately, we were looking for May, but due to scheduling conflicts, we are looking to, it will be done before the end of the year, but that's just one of the things that Section 3 in procurement is working on.
Very good. So there are going to be some ongoing.
Yes, it's going to be ongoing talks on. Now, I can only speak on that project that we're doing. If there's any other efforts, unfortunately, that wouldn't be Section 3. But we have collaborated to make sure, because Section 3 is not gender-based. It is pretty much it's your income and your family household and your location.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Well,
so that includes everybody.
well, very good. And so I know this is a concern of this body. We want to make sure that we get those numbers up as far as folks that minorities and participation. We discussed this several months ago, but we're going to be looking at these numbers, and we got to do a better job of making sure that not only our residents, but minorities get an opportunity to participate in some of these great activities that we have going on, some of these huge projects. They have to have a seat at the table. We've got to provide that opportunity. We've got some very capable minority businesses in this community, and we need to make sure that they're given an opportunity. So we're going to hold folk accountable. As a matter of fact, we're probably going to have something on the agenda every month concerning either Section 3 or how we're moving forward with minority participation. So that's going to be a standing agenda item every month until we can get this thing turned around. So, I think that was the main question that Reverend Todd had concerning. Just want to know where we are, updates, what was activity, what was being done. Commissioner Jackson, you got something? No? Okay, all right, okay, very good. Thank you, Ms. French.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
All right.
I was gonna say, don't do the Trump run.
All right, so now we have presentations of persons desiring to speak before the HAB Board of Commissioners. We have Josephine D. McKinney. Yes, come on up.
She got up good. She got up good. Right there.
Good afternoon, Ms. McKinney. All right, Ms. McKinney, you have 3 minutes to speak. Just wanted to let you know you have 3 minutes.
Okay.
But if you need to go a little longer, we'll oblige. But,
I appreciate
yeah.
that.
Okay, all right.
I'm a member of Cooper Green Housing Community, and I have 2 issues that I'm really concerned about living here, and that is a lot of black mold, and also the way the buildings, the rails and stuff, how they just are rusted. And I don't think that it should be that hard or take as long as it's been taking for somebody to come out and address those issues and make our home look better than it does. Because it doesn't look like it did when I first moved in here. I used to always get people coming through saying how beautiful it was here and stuff. I'm not really hearing that no more. You can go up Hugh Denman, going up the hill on the right, every one of those rails are just rusted. And I think something should be done, and I've asked about it, and I'm wondering why it's taking so long for something to be done about that. Both of these things are not hard fixes. It's easy to get rid of the mold. And also, you can't just paint over those rails either. You have to prep them so that rust doesn't eat right back through the paint. So I'm interested in knowing who can fix that for us.
Yeah, so, Mr. Lundy, you want to address that now?
So
or
we'll,
later?
we'll take a look at that. I made some notes, and we'll get with the property manager and my team to address your concerns.
Yeah, and one more thing is, I'll just use this for instance.
Ma'am, if you could speak it to the mic so we can, yeah.
I'm thinking I'm in this is just for instance, so you understand what I mean by things taking so long. We had termites. I discovered them in my windowsill in the kitchen, and I asked about that for over 3 months before somebody finally did something about it, and they cleaned it up. But the trees were still there. Were 5 trees and stuff, and it wasn't until Miss Whitfield became the resident manager that we were finally able to get those trees cut down. Because even if you put everything down for the termites, if their home is still, termites' home still there, then they can still destroy our homes. So, but I don't think it should have to take that long for anything that serious to be taken care of.
So ma'am, again, you know, we'll take a look at that. I assume you put in a work order at the time when you noticed these.
Yeah, because it was a temporary manager here with the termites when that
Okay.
was going on. That was a temporary person.
We'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Make sure your concerns are being addressed timely.
And how long do you think it would take before I could hear me and Miss Whitfield can hear something back about it?
Well, you'll probably hear something by the end of the day.
That works for me.
Is that soon enough?
I appreciate Miss Whitfield and stuff, and nobody can do no more than they can do. You know, everybody has a job. My job is to let you know something's wrong and it needs to be fixed and stuff, and then you just pass it along. And I know it's stages that you have to go through, but those 2 things are really important to make our homes look good and remove anything that could be detrimental to any of us. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right. I think that concludes our speakers.
He didn't sign up, the man in the wheelchair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Come on. I'm sorry. I didn't see you.
Why don't you just bring it right to him?
Yeah, that'd be good. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Lynn Dye, and I'm a resident of Freedom Manor, and I was temporarily located out here to Cooper Green. I came out here on October the 5th, and I've enjoyed being out here up to a couple of incidents that I've gone through. January the 20th, while I was at church, I do a lot of work in the ministry, and while I was at church, someone broke into my kitchen window, and they burglarized my house. They took a lot of a couple of gaming consoles I had for some of my godchildren, and I had a safe where I was saving some money to buy me some new transportation, and I had saved up over about 4 years about $5,800 in it. I filed a police report, and I, mentioned it to the management, and I really didn't feel comfortable, but they offered me an opportunity to take a look at Southtown, and I said I was better off here than I was there. So I had a feeling that they would probably attempt this thing again because of some of the music equipment and stuff that was still there. I came home from church yesterday. I saw these 4 young guys walking around the back of the building next to where I am at. I felt suspicious about them, but when I got in the house, everything looked, okay. Later on that night, I went to the refrigerator to get a glass of water, and I said, well, let me take a look at the kitchen window. And it was bursted out. The only difference this time is I had put a burglar prevention kit up in that window. And I don't think that the lease agrees to me doing that, but that was the only thing that kept me from having this happen. The police came today, and they were, very proud of the initiative I took to put that in that window. As of now, I'm just wondering, is there anything that you all could do to put me in a place with more safety and more security? Because it looks like I'm being targeted at this residence. And this is the second time that they've hit me. The only thing is I was able to prevent them from getting through that window this time.
So, sir, we'll have one of our staff speak with you after the meeting and see if we have to look at other alternatives as far as a transfer to another apartment somewhere else, either somewhere else in the neighborhood or somewhere else in our portfolio, something that would be suitable to you. And I know you express, you like living out here, you just don't like that experience,
Right.
which we understand that, and we want to ensure that, that you don't feel like you've been targeted. And so we'll look to what we have in terms of available apartments that we can transfer you to.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, thank you. Is there anybody else? Anybody else want to speak? Going once? Going twice? All right. One more item I forgot to mention, Mr. Lundy. It was, I should have mentioned it to you in new business. But it's been brought to my attention that that there's residents that are attempting to install window units in some of these units, and that they're being sent notices stating that if they install the unit, they're going to be fined a certain amount of money for installing the units. And so I don't know what the policy is on that, if they can install a unit, they can't install a unit, but they're saying that they are getting notices from management saying that if they do install the unit, that they're going to be levied with a severe fine if they install the unit. So I'm assuming that means that if they're being levied a fine, then they're not supposed to have the unit. But if you could speak to that, I know we're about to run into the dog days of summer here, and folks, want to feel comfortable, but if they cannot install the unit, I think that may be something, some type of notice or something that may need to go out to the residents to make sure that they're notified.
So, Mr. Chairman, we can certainly address that. We have no prohibition with installation of air conditioners, window units. I would imagine that the staff, I'm not sure which site this is, would want to maybe have a little bit more involvement in ensuring that the window unit is installed properly so that it wouldn't create a issue for the resident or for other residents that may be, because, if you don't install them correctly, they can fall right out of the window. And so, the caveat to that is that we want to make sure our staff are involved to make sure that it's installed correctly. And I'll speak to Mr. Blankenship after the meeting to address that going forward. And if we need to send out some sort of correspondence, I'm not sure exactly where this occurred, but we need to send out some correspondence to make residents feel comfortable that I can tell you this, I can't imagine them getting on any sort of, that anybody would need to authorize a fine to be levied for residents installing air conditioners. But if there have been some threats, and I'm sure you're making mention at this board meeting, apparently there were, then we'll address that. That's something easy we can resolve.
So specifically, it was Roosevelt City is what I was told. That was in Roosevelt City.
Okay.
So that'll help drill down a little bit.
Okay.
Roosevelt City.
Actually, we've already investigated that from weeks back.
Go ahead. Yeah.
When we spoke to the staff out there, they were unaware of any notice that was sent out stating that you could not do that. Actually, they informed us that they encourage residents to put in the work order and they will come out and assist them with that. I believe where the confusion fell was last year during the REAC inspection, they asked that units be removed. They would come remove them and put them back in for you. I think there may have been some wording in that document last year that may have led to concern about that. And then also we were informed that there may have been somebody out there, an outside contractor, who came in and installed units for someone. I think a resident had asked this outside contractor to come and assist them, and the outside contractor charged them to do that. That is not something that was condoned by HABD or by Allied Orion. That was an outside contractor that a resident spoke to on their own and arranged that. However, we will ensure that the AC is put in correctly. There is no fee for that.
Okay. So there was no correspondence sent from your office or the third party? Is there a third party that manages that site?
Yes, it is, Allied Orion.
Yeah, so nothing sent from the third party or your office stating that it would be a fine if you install?
No.
Okay. All right,
Not
very
that I'm aware of, and not that anything has been brought to me that I've seen.
good. Okay, very good. Okay.
We did investigate that about 3 weeks ago.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Blankenship.
All right, any other questions, concerns? If not, if I can entertain a motion,
I make a
To
motion
adjourn?
that the meeting adjourn.
ma'am?
I make a motion that the meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, this meeting's adjourned.
Wow.
What's going on, man?